Trust with our community is the absolute foundation of an effective law enforcement agency. You need the public trust. You need them to be willing to call you. You need them to be able to tell you what's going on. And if we don't have trust, we can't be effective. Really, trust is kind of at the core of all we do. I think it comes down to really building that trust and also being transparent with our policies and with our practices. What we're hearing over and over again is that traffic stops based strictly on equipment violations disproportionately affected persons of color, and it was eroding trust in our community. These stops were not a priority for them. We wanted our officers to focus on moving violations. These are the violations that are causing crashes, they're injuring other motorists, they're injuring pedestrians, and even killing pedestrians in certain cases.
When we made the decision to eliminate the traffic stop portion, we did look at it from two different sides. From the individual who's being pulled over, we understand that no matter what you're being pulled over for, or even if you're not being pulled over, but you see the lights or the sirens behind you, it inherently adds a level of stress to your current driving. And we wanted to eliminate that because having those traffic stops adds stress to the individuals in the community who are just trying to go back and forth to work, pick up kids from school. They've got their own schedules and they've got their own things they're trying to manage in their own individual lives.
What moved me is hearing from our community members, hearing their own experiences and also experiences of their friends and family who had been stopped for a really minor equipment violation, and how that made them feel, that it really eroded some of that trust with law enforcement, and it really left them in fear. And so hearing those stories, it was hard not to listen and not to look at how we could serve our community maybe differently and better.
I had a very reluctant attitude at first, and partially because with the programs that we have out there that help people fix these equipment violations, it is a chance for us to interface with the community and actually show up bearing something positive as opposed to we being associated always with a negative. I had an event where or a traffic stop where I pulled over a woman who at the time I just didn't have working taillights, which by the way, no working taillights would still be something we would stop you for today because that's dangerous. I pulled this person over and they had two small kids in the car, and it turned out they were homeless and they were living out of the car. And of course, you can imagine what the woman who was homeless and living out of a car with two children was thinking about. Now she's going to get a ticket for $100 for taillights. And so when she found out that she was going to get basically a coupon to get these fixed, and that the place would install the lights for her, fix the lights, those types of things, she started to cry, and then she drove off. And about 5-6 minutes later, I was still out dealing with something else in the same area, and she pulled up and she got out of the car and she came up and hugged me. And she said, I just can't believe, because I had said to her, I think, spend that money you would have spent getting your taillights fixed, spending on some ice cream cones for the kids, or do something that's nice for you, or whatever, that kind of a thing. And the police, we don't get as many opportunities as we like to coach teams or to do a bunch of things that we want to do. I think the community thinks that we're out here and all we want to do is run around and get in high-speed chases and arrest people, and that just simply isn't the case. And so I think when this first started, people started to think, well, these are the much lower, less offenses. These are the things that I get the opportunity to show up and be a superhero for that person today, and you're kind of taking those away from me by not having me stop those. And the other part was that I don't think the officers really and myself included, didn't really understand the big picture of what was going on. And where my metamorphosis happened was, although all of what I just told you was true, if I took a step back from that, I realized, well, that's about making me feel good. And I don't know what trauma the woman went through up until the point that she realized she wasn't going to get a ticket, but if I can take that off the plate, I really shouldn't, to avoid that for selfish reasons, just because I felt very philanthropical in the moment.
Most people don't even realize they have a tail light out, a headlight out. It's one of those things we just don't notice. By eliminating the traffic stop, we felt like, well, we can still fix this problem, but we can just reduce the stress of the interaction. On the other side of that, traffic stops are stressful for officers as well. There's an added level of stress to making a traffic stop because we don't know what we're walking up to every time we make a traffic stop.
You really need, as an agency, to do a very good job explaining the philosophy and the why behind what you're doing so that your employees understand it. At the end of the day, it's not the chief of police that's making all the traffic stops in the city.
If we're going out and engaging in traffic stops for really minor equipment violations that really do not impact public safety, it doesn't seem like a good use of our officers' time, as well as the risk that they're putting themselves in.
Well, I think it's really imperative that people spend the time educating their officers, educating their departments, so that the entire, not only the community, but the department itself understands what we're doing and why it's so important. Now, where you get a lot of pushback from this is that law enforcement particularly will say, well, traffic stops are one of the big areas that we find weapons and we interrupt other crimes and we discover people that are doing things illegally that we otherwise wouldn't know about had we not stopped a person for another reason. The research out there that had nothing to do with Ramsey County or the St. Paul Police Department started to suggest that the percentage of stops that were made for these non-public safety equipment violations were really yielding in the area of less than, they looked at millions of stops, less than 5% were yielding any kind of weapons whatsoever. We ran the numbers here in St. Paul, and our numbers were even much smaller than that. So we thought this wasn't something that we were taking a great risk in trying, and we thought if our community wants it and we're a part of that community and we get to decide those things together, let's take a look at it, let's see if it works for us. And what we found is it's been successful. And it isn't that we're suffering in any other areas. Our shootings are not going up, they're going down. Our firearms recoveries have gone up, not down. All the areas that I think people who would push back against an experiment like this, the data just doesn't support those concerns.
This is an easy program to show your officers that, hey, we're not ignoring the issues. We're not saying that people driving around with vehicles that are, not operating fully is okay, but we understand that a lot of the people are not doing it because they're intentionally trying to drive around without lights on. They're doing it either because they don't know the light is out or they may not have the resources to fix it. And this gives them that opportunity to fix that problem so the roads are safer, but again, allows our resources to be dedicated to, higher crime areas and bigger problems that we're trying to solve within the city. Here at Maplewood, when we implemented lights on, we don't actually stop the cars. So we don't pull the car over and hand a voucher out. The way that we handle it is our officers, they run the license plate through their computer in their vehicle, and what they do from there is they essentially enter it into our report writing system. It goes back to our community outreach coordinator, and she actually sends the letter to the individual. And ultimately, the officers have really seen it as a benefit. I mean, without having the stop, they can do this while they're on their way to another call. I mean, they can literally be responding to, to go check the area because a citizen called in that they thought they heard a car alarm or they thought they heard something going on. And while they're driving to that area, if they see a car that doesn't have, all their lights working, they simply have to type the license plate in, they hit 2 buttons, and it's done. By sending the letter, it gives them an opportunity to respond. If they do respond, we offer the opportunity to mail them a voucher, or we offer them the opportunity to come into the police department.
Maplewood Police Department, this is Barb. Yeah, what was the last name? I will be out in a second. Hi.
Hello.
This is good for $250. So it should, I don't know if you have a headlight or...
Yes, it was a headlight.
Headlight, okay. So the 250 should cover that.
Thank you, Barb.
So
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Glad we could help you there.
I'm glad
so
to help you too. Thank you.
exactly, it's worth it, right?
It is. Thank you. Yeah.
The original decision to volunteer to take part in this process happened under the previous chief, and it's something I highly support. It isn't a policy, it's a kind of a philosophy that our department takes on.
At our agency, what we did not do is we did not make a policy that prevents officers from making those traffic stops. We more focused on a culture shift. We wanted the officers to understand the importance of a public safety violation versus an equipment violation. We've seen a lot of success. We see over 90% of our traffic stops focused on public safety stops, and we're really proud of that.
When talking to other chiefs who have reached out and asked about this program, the first thing I say is you got to listen to your community. That's really what drove this change, is we're listening to what our community was telling us their needs were.
For departments that haven't attempted this yet or haven't bought into this program yet, making this switch and focusing on public safety really did get at the goals of what our community wants from us, but also what we want for the community. We want a safer community. And at the end of the day, this is an easy program to implement to make your community safer.
Our community came together, and we're a part of that community, and said, can we try something different? And if I were going to give advice to anybody, it would be not to do a thing or not to do it, but to try things. Be open to try something different. And that's the approach that we took here. We found it to be very successful.